For years, I was constantly looking for shortcuts to take, probably because I was addicted to social media and all the things that make life more efficient. So I think my brain just got used to wanting something and then immediately getting it. I was hooked on that sweet, sweet instant gratification. But the problem is, most things worth doing in life, the things that make us feel fulfilled, they don't have a magic button. If you want to get fit or learn a new skill or become great at literally anything, shortcuts don't work. All of these things take time and patience. But patient isn't something you can just suddenly decide to start being, especially in this world full of constant distractions. But recently, I accidentally tricked myself into becoming a more patient person, and as a result, I can finally focus on pursuing dreams that I've always wanted to pursue but have been too distracted for. And I also just have more appreciation for the present moment, which are some bold claims, I know, but this is not clickbait, okay? This is a true story. Specifically, this is my story about how I got my patience back. The year was 2021, a year into the pandemic and a year into my addiction to TikTok. At this time, I was scrolling myself to sleep most nights. I really just did not have the healthiest routine. But somehow I bamboozled my way into this really cool job. I got hired to do social media for this organization that did a lot of work in Latin America. So pretty soon after getting hired, they started sending me there pretty often to capture content, which was so cool. I'm a lady who loves to travel. I love Latin American culture. But there was one glaring problem. I did not speak Spanish. I would be at the office in Mexico and everyone would have to speak English just so I could understand what was going on. And this was super embarrassing for me. I remember being on one of these trips and daydreaming about one day being able to waltz into the office and be able to speak Spanish and everyone would be so impressed. It would just be such a cool moment. And it was literally that vision that motivated me to start learning this language. And I know that my motivation to learn, being rooted in ego, makes me a flawed individual. But I'm just being honest, that is where my head was at. Anyway, regardless of my motivation, this became the first time in my adult life that I became dead set on learning something new. So what did I do? I signed up for tutoring. I got the textbooks, the workbooks, the flashcards. I was up on Duolingo, doing the listening modules. I committed to spending 1 hour a day studying. And my ego, that vision I had, kept me motivated to learn for a little while. But it didn't take long for me to start skipping study sessions because my urge to scroll on TikTok or watch YouTube videos would win out. I was just so used to using my downtime for passive entertainment. And to my credit, a lot of the YouTube videos I would be watching were hacks for learning a new language fast and get fluent in 30 days. And I felt like those things were productive to watch, but most of the time they were pretty useless. But in one of those YouTube holes I fell into, I did come across some really great advice from the YouTuber Spanish Input. I love this guy, okay? He gives us advice that you should learn in context, specifically in a context that you enjoy. And this was a freaking light bulb moment because, again, at this time, I'm addicted to TikTok. And so I thought, wait, I could change my language settings and only watch TikToks in Spanish. And that is the moment, okay? I didn't know at the time, but the game had been changed. Since I was already used to opening TikTok at night, it was pretty easy to be consistent and start a study session. And what I would do is I would watch a video and I would transcribe all of the subtitles. And for every word I didn't know, which was most of them, I would look up the English definition and write it right above the Spanish word. And I found this process to be so fun, but also so exhausting. TikTok used to be this place I would go to zone out on. And now my brain would become like exhausted after watching like 2 TikToks because it would take me like a half hour or more to decode one video. Around the same time, my Mexican friends from work started sending me different musicians I should listen to, so I started transcribing their songs. They sent me TV shows to watch, so it would take me like a week to get through one episode of a show. But I just loved learning this way, and it was so easy to be consistent because my brain still felt like it was getting the like hits of entertaining content that it was used to getting. After months of learning this way, I started to have days where I realized I only had to look up half of the words from the subtitles on TikTok, and it used to be 90% of the words. And feeling that growth, like tracking that progress, was the most rewarding thing ever. I kind of realized after a while, the thing I'm working towards isn't strutting into the office and being able to speak in Spanish. It's like, it's this feeling, it's this growth, it's this progress. Like, that's where the reward comes from. It's so cheesy. The journey, not the destination. It's so true, okay? It's so true. So I recently came across this book by Rick Rubin, who, if you don't know, he's a legendary music producer, creative genius. And this book is a very spiritual take on creativity. And he has a section on patience, and it really resonated with me. Patience is developed much like awareness.
Through an acceptance of what is. Impatience is an argument with reality, the desire for something to be different from what we are experiencing in the here and now. A wish for time to speed up, tomorrow to come sooner, to relive yesterday, or to close your eyes and open them and find yourself in another place.
His description of impatience is exactly how all those years of mindlessly scrolling, of consuming content, made me feel. It made me feel like I was arguing with my own reality. Somehow, something as silly as watching TikToks in a language I don't understand made me slow down just long enough to start to have patience again. And I think that's because I started to consume to understand and to learn, rather than consuming to be entertained or numbed. Committing to learning something new improved my life in a lot of different ways. It not only changed my relationship with content and how I consume it, but it also reminded me of how fun and rewarding it is to learn. And also how awesome it feels to suck at something, practice, and eventually suck a little bit less. And I'm convinced that it's in that process is where we find fulfillment. I'm convinced of it. And now I find myself pursuing personal growth in a bunch of other different ways. Like, this is my second YouTube video, and I'm proud of it, like today, right? But I hope that one day I look back at it and say like, oh, that video sucked. Because that means that I stayed patient enough to keep practicing and eventually got better. I want you to think back to being in school in your favorite subject, in your favorite class, with your favorite teacher. And do you remember that feeling where you would bust out your favorite pens and start listening and start taking notes, and you were just so curious and excited to learn? Like, I know we all have that, and we might be adults now, but that curiosity and that love for learning, it's there. It's in us. It's just waiting to be rekindled.